This was an interesting one. You're going to have to defend this one to me. You decided Nolan Ryan was
I did.
overrated.
I've always thought that. Now, again, I'm going to say this so everybody hears it. Nolan Ryan, most strikeouts in history, holds a single season strikeout record.
Does.
The most feared pitcher of my lifetime, probably more than Randy Johnson, for the single reason that if you ran out on the mound and tried to attack him, you were going to get taken down. There was a report, as I was doing some of this research, Ryan may have thrown a 108-mile-an-hour fastball. Can't verify it, but he was that fast.
Right.
However, he never won a Cy Young Award. He was never considered the greatest pitcher on his team or of his generation. I mean, when you think of if you were going to have a big game coming up from the people of that generation, I'm going to choose Bob Gibson.
Right.
I'm going to choose Tom Seaver. I'm going to choose Greg Maddux. There's a whole laundry list of players I want to pitch that very important game before I'm going to choose Nolan Ryan. He was very wild, which was part of his effectiveness. He lost 292 games. He won 324.
Right.
He walked for his career. He averaged 4.67 walks per game. You can't be considered one of the all-time greats. And again, I'm going to go back to the argument used about the fridge. He is not the greatest. He shouldn't be considered the greatest pitcher of all time.
But in defense, I did the research on this too. I mean, the guy's a 8-time All-Star, which we already said All-Stars don't mean everything, right? He's a World Series champion. He's a 2-time National League ERA leader, 11-time strikeout leader, which is huge.
Well,
More strikeouts than anybody else. He has his number retired in 3 different stadiums.
sure. I'm not taking anything away from
7
Ryan.
no-hitters.
7 no-hitters. When he was on, he was untouchable. But if I'm going to go into Game 7 of the World Series, and I have to pick from all of the guys who pitched from 1960, he pitched for 27 years.
Just a long time.
Take out the first year, I think he only had he appeared in 1 inning or something. But so 26 seasons. Of that 26-year period, of all the pitchers, Fergie Jenkins was in that period. Steve Carlton was in that discussion. On and on and on. I'm never going to. He is going to be so far down on my list of guys I'm going to pick to start that game. It's just I can't.
So what do you say to the guys? Because there's a lot of people out there that are going to disagree with this and say they'd
Sure.
have Nolan Ryan as their Game 7 pitcher without even a question.
4.67 walks. You're going to give up. You're going to put guys on base that often.
But this guy was a 2-time NL ERA leader.
Sure, when he's on, he was dynamite. But it took him 26 years. He won 324 games,
Right.
300 game winner.
Yes.
Again, he belongs in the Hall of Fame. But he lost almost as many. I mean, he was like 1 win for 1 loss. Not the guy I'm gonna choose to pitch Game 7 rather. Just not gonna be that guy. Give me Gibson, who I know is going to bleed before he's gonna give up a run.
Yeah, Gibson, the rules were literally changed for.
Right.
I don't think there's any denying that Bob Gibson was a better pitcher than Nolan Ryan all time.
Sandy Koufax.
But to say Nolan Ryan's overrated.
When you're talking about the all-time greats, and
this guy's on the all-century team.
Sure. Look, I have heard this from baseball fans. You talk about the fridge. I'm going to talk about guys I know who are baseball so-called fans and students of the game, and they're going, "Oh, Nolan Ryan's the greatest pitcher of all time." Really? You can't be 324 and 292 and be the best pitcher of all time. Warren Spahn won 363 games, and I think he lost less than 200.
I'd have to look it up.
I'd have to look it up. But give me a lot of guys. Give me Greg Maddux, who can't throw as fast, but boy, he could pitch.
He could pinpoint. Yeah, you had Roger Clemens. You had Randy Johnson. I'd take ahead of him too. But he's a Hall of Famer.
He is a Hall of Famer. So is Derek Jeter. Both Hall of Famers, but both overrated when you're considering them against the guys they're going against. If you're a Hall of Famer, that means you're going to get compared against the greatest of the great.
Right.
And I am one of those guys who thinks there's a Hall of Fame, but inside that Hall of Fame is a very special room for only the greatest of the greats, where the Babe Ruths, where the Joe Montanas, the Bart Starrs, and going back to baseball, the Warren Spahns get into. There's a very small room. The Willie Mays, the Ted Williams, Sam Musial. And then there's the rest of the Hall of Famers. Nolan Ryan's in the rest of the Hall of Famers room. He's not in that little room that very few can ever get into.
And more
Bring it at me,
strikeouts than
guys.
anybody else. 7 no hitters.
Yep. 7 no
I mean,
hitters.
you're saying a guy who holds 2 records that will never be broken, by the way.
He pitched for 26 years.
There's guys that have pitched that long that still don't have that many no hitters. There's
No,
guys that have pitched for 20 years and haven't thrown a
when
no
he was
hitter.
on, he was on, but he was off as much as he was on, and he gave up way too many walks. Again, he's a Hall of Famer, but he's not the greatest of the great.
I'm
I'll
not
take,
saying he's the greatest pitcher of all time, but he
but
definitely
that's what
belongs in
other
the
people
special
say.
room. I mean, he
No,
has more strikeouts than anybody. That record will never be touched.
it
He
won't
has
be.
more no hitters than anybody else. That record will never be touched.
But he doesn't belong in that little room when you're 324 and 292 and give up almost 5 walks per game. You
All right.
just don't belong in the little room with the greatest of the greats. Warren Spahn, Cy Young, Bob Gibson, Sandy Koufax, they're looking at Nolan Ryan going, nice career, but stay over there with the other boys. Just my opinion. I want to hear what the listeners have to say.
That was a tough one to swallow. It was. I have to laugh at this because this is the one that kept coming up in conversations where we're like, save it for the show because I just don't get how a man who has 2 records that'll never be touched, you don't consider in that small little room with the rest of the Hall of Famers.
324, 292, 4.7 walks. He was never the greatest pitcher of his generation.
All right, he has never won a Cy Young.
Never.
I can't argue that. His record speaks for
Most
itself. I mean,
feared.
he does have the walks.
Would I call him the most feared pitcher? Him and Randy Johnson is going to go either one of the two. Randy Johnson might get the edge because of what he did to the bird.
Right.
But and Nolan Ryan also had an awesome curveball. I'm not taking any of that away
Did.
from him. But to get in that special room, you can't basically be,
All right. It's your
1-for-1
list.
win. It's my list, and I at least went out on a couple limbs, unlike Refrigerator Perry.